All right, today we're going to talk about the judicial branch of the government. We've already talked about the presidency and Congress, and now we're here to the court system. And the main thing to understand about the court system is we have two main sets of courts. We have state courts and federal courts. And depending on the crime you're accused of doing, that's the court your case will be held in. So we're going to look at these two different types of court systems. So first we're going to start with state courts. And the lowest level state court is a municipal court. Many of you might be familiar with the municipal court if you ever had to go downtown and pay a speeding ticket, a parking ticket, possibly an underage drinking ticket. Those are all taken care of at a municipal court level. Those are city courts. So again, those are city courts. They handle minor things, typically ticketing and those types of issues. Most municipal courts are part-time. They're only a couple of days a week. I think Beloit's municipal court is like a Wednesday and Sunday, or Wednesday and Saturday, I'm sorry. Only like Madison and Milwaukee have full-time municipal courts. Obviously, much bigger cities, they need that. Here's the thing with the municipal courts is those judges are elected. So really, anybody could be elected a municipal court judge. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to have any judicial experience. If you win the election, you're the municipal court judge. Now, in reality, you're probably not going to win if you're not a judge or a lawyer, but you don't have to be. So the next layer we're going to look at is the basic trial court. If you're facing a state charge like DUI, a more minor crime, not a federal charge, your first stop is going to be a Wisconsin Circuit Court or what's called a county court. Think of county court up in Janesville. This is where you're first going to have your trial and you're actually going to have a jury. This is where, if you have to serve on a jury duty, most likely it's going to be here up in Janesville at the Wisconsin Circuit Court of Rock County. Every county in Wisconsin has one branch. 27 counties only have one judge, smaller populations, where Milwaukee, obviously a much larger population, has 47 different judges, 47 different branches within their one circuit court. I believe Rock County has 3. Again, this is where your first trial is going to be. If I'm on trial for a state charge, I'm going to be up in Janesville at Rock County Courthouse on trial there with a judge and a jury. If I lose my case, my next stop is the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. I have to ask this court to take my case. They don't automatically take it. So if I lose up in Janesville at Rock County Court, I then have to appeal it to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. And I can't just say, take my case because I don't want to be guilty. There has to be a legal reason why I want them to take my case. And typically, they're going to argue they didn't get a fair trial, their lawyer screwed up, the judge screwed up, there was something wrong, some legal reason. But in this case, there's no jury. It's not a new jury hearing the trial. It's basically a panel of judges who hear the arguments from the lawyers, and those judges make the decision. So again, there's no jury at this level. Wisconsin has 4 districts, depending on where you live. District 4 right here, obviously, is where we would be. Again, your trial court would be here in Janesville and Rock County, and then you would appeal it to the Court of Appeals, and that would be in Madison. The court is unified, so if a court here in District 4 makes a decision and District 3 has a very similar case, the ruling would affect both districts. So let's say I now lose at this level. My trial in Janesville, my district court, I lost. I appeal it up to the Court of Appeals. I lose again. My last stop would then be the state Supreme Court in Madison. If you've been to the Capitol in Madison, that's where the Supreme Court is. One part of the Capitol is for the governor, one part is the state assembly, one part is the state senate, and the other wing of the Capitol is the state Supreme Court. Again, you have to ask them to take your case if you lose. They don't have to take your case, and they don't take a lot of cases per year. But again, there is no jury as well. It's basically the panel of justices who hear your case, and they make the decision. There are 7 judges on the state Supreme Court called justices. This is in one wing of the Capitol. This is their chamber. Again, your lawyer will stand up here and present your case to the judges. The other side would present their case to the justices, and then they make the decision. There are 7 total justices, and they all serve a 10-year term. It's an elected position. They're called nonpartisan because when they run, they don't run as a Republican or as a Democrat. It's supposed to be a nonpartisan position. But in reality, Supreme Court judges have become very partisan, even at the state level. They don't run as a Democrat or Republican, but you can tell by who supports them if they're a more conservative or liberal-leaning judge. Again, you have to ask them to take your case. They don't take all the requests every year. It's going to be typically something very important for them to take your case. 3 of the 7 justices have to vote to take your case. Again, there's no jury. And 4 of the justices have to rule in your favor to win. You need a majority to win the case. And this is kind of the last stop on a state level. Some cases you could appeal over to the U.S. Supreme Court, but most of the time the road's going to end right here for you. So that's the state court system. You have municipal court at a city level. You have district court, which is your trial court. That's like Rock County. You then can appeal it to the Circuit Court of Appeals and then up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Now we're going to look at the federal court system. Very similar setup. The first stop is a district court. Now, if I'm going to face a federal charge of counterfeiting, tax evasion, even obviously murder, treason, terrorism, it's going to be a district court. And my first stop is a U.S. district court. And this is where I'm going to have a trial on a federal level. I have a jury. There's 94 different districts across the country. Every state has at least one. California and Texas each have 4 districts because of much larger states. Wisconsin has 2, one in Milwaukee and one in Madison. Again, they deal with federal law, not state law. And these courts are all equal. One court in one part of the country might rule in one way, that same case in a different part of the country, and they might rule a different way. So again, here's the map of Wisconsin. You have the Western District right here, which is going to be based out of Madison, and then the Eastern District, they actually kind of break it up into 2, Milwaukee and Green Bay. Now here, there's 2 different types of juries you might encounter. First is a grand jury. This jury basically decides, can they charge you with a crime? If I'm the prosecutor and I think you did the crime, I have to go in front of this grand jury and show them all the evidence. So here's why I think they did the crime and I want to charge them. The grand jury is either going to say, no, you don't have enough evidence, you can't charge them, go get more. Or yes, you can charge them, and they will issue what's called an indictment. If you ever watch Law and Order or a lot of movies, you might heard the term indictment. That means that it's an official charge of the crime. If they charge you, if they indict you, then you go on trial and you have a trial jury, and this is the regular jury you're used to hearing about. They actually hear the evidence of the case and they decide if you're guilty or innocent. Again, if you get called for jury duty, you could get called to serve at the district court level up in Madison. It's less likely, but it does happen. So now I'm on trial federally for tax evasion. My case is in Madison at the U.S. District Court in Madison, and I lose. Well, I can ask for an appeal. My next stop would then be the Circuit Court of Appeals. Again, I have to ask them to take my case. They don't have to. There has to be a legal reason, and there is no jury. Again, it's just a panel of judges who hear my arguments, and they decide if I should win or not. There are 12 sister circuits across the country, and it's all based on where you live. We are in Circuit 7. So if I lose my case in Madison, I can appeal it to the Court of Appeals, and that's going to be in Chicago, Circuit 7. These courts are all independent, so a case heard here in Circuit 7, they could decide one thing. Over here in Circuit 9, they could decide something totally different for the same case. They're not connected. They're not bound to each other. My last stop, if I lose my case at the appellate court, is the U.S. Supreme Court. So I lose my case in Madison for counterfeiting. I then appeal it to the Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago. They take my case. I lose there. My last stop is the U.S. Supreme Court in D.C. Again, I have to ask them to take my case. They don't take a lot of cases per year, maybe 75 to 100 cases total per year out of the thousands of people that ask them to take their case. Again, there's no jury. Your lawyer gets to argue in front of the Supreme Court. The other side argues in front of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court makes their decisions. There are 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and they serve for life. They're not elected. The president appoints them, and the Senate has to approve that. We don't want Supreme Court judges worrying about getting reelected. We want them only basing their decision on the law, not trying to make the voters happy or the president happy. So once they're on the Supreme Court, they're there for life till they either die or they might retire. They could be impeached. Actually, judges get impeached more than presidents. Typically, it's for tax evasion or taking bribes, but it hasn't happened in quite a while. So these are the 9 current justices on the Supreme Court. They're called the ghosts of past presidents because they serve for a long time. The president is only president for at max 8 years. Supreme Court justices might serve for 20, 30, 40 years as long as they stay alive and want to serve. It shows you next to their name who appointed them. The blue name by a Democratic president, the red name by a Republican president. So you notice right now there are 5 justices appointed by Republican presidents, so the court leans to the right, has a Republican tilt, 5-4 a lot of the times. Again, once they're appointed, they can make any decision they want. The president can't remove them if he doesn't like the decisions they make. And you notice some of the time, 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed, so she's been on the court for quite a while. Neil Gorsuch here is the recent addition. He was appointed by Trump. And Obama appointed a couple, Elena Kagan right here and Sonia Sotomayor right here. It's the last resort. There's nowhere else to go. Again, they decide which cases they want to hear. Most judges are in their 50s when they get added to the court because they want to have a lot of experience. But that is actually changing. More justices are getting added in their 40s because if I'm the president and I pick somebody who's younger, they're going to serve on there much longer. They're probably going to serve and make decisions that I like for a longer period of time. Some basic information. There are 9 justices. The president appoints them. They're confirmed by the Senate. They serve for life as long as they have good behavior. The Chief Justice is John Roberts. The first woman was Sandra Day O'Connor in 1981. The first African-American, Thurgood Marshall in 1967. And again, they serve until they either die, they resign, or they are impeached. So how do I get my case there? Well, I have to ask them. Again, this says 100 to 150, but they probably only take 75 to 100 cases out of the 7,000 that are sent to them every year. There's a rule of 4. 4 of the 9 justices have to agree to take the case. So not a majority, only 4, but if they say they'll take it, they take it. They issue what's called a writ of certiorari, which is Latin, which means we're going to take the case, and they want all those lower courts to send them all the records and documents. Writ of certiorari. Briefs are then filed. My lawyer types up a brief, which sounds like it would be short, but it's actually hundreds of pages long. It's basically all my lawyer's arguments for why I should win. The other side, they'll prepare a brief as well and send that to the judges. And they will read that before I actually go in front of the court, before my lawyers argue the case. Here you are at the Supreme Court, the top court in the country, but you only get 30 minutes. Your lawyer gets 30 minutes to argue the case in front of the judges. And you don't even get the full 30 minutes because during that 30 minutes, the judges can interrupt your lawyer with questions. And that's typically what happens. They've read the briefs already. They know what your case is about. So they start asking your lawyer questions right away. Then they hear cases from October through April. And on Fridays, they have conferences. It's probably the most secret meeting in Washington, D.C. There are no secretaries, no aides, nothing's recording it. It's just those 9 justices debating the cases. They write opinions. Those opinions are important. They're used to set legal precedent for the lower courts. The president reads them, Congress reads them, and to send the message. The majority opinion is the winning side. Let's say I win my case 5-4. One of those 5 justices are going to write a majority opinion, basically why I should have won. But the dissenting opinion is written by the other side. One of those 4 justices who ruled against me, they write what's called a dissenting opinion, why I actually should have lost the case. And those can be important. They're dug up later on in history and used in future court cases. And that's it. That's the Supreme Court in a nutshell. Again, that's your last stop, and this is the court system overall. Please see Mr. Podgen or myself if you have any questions.